Hey everybody, it's X, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we'll be playing another mixed-up Premier Draft, basically Magic Arena's version of the Chaos Draft, where we have cards from 9 or 10 random sets in Pack 1, Pack 2, and Pack 3. They are technically the same 9 or 10 sets in Pack 1 every time, then in Pack 2 every time, then in Pack 3 every time, but all three packs contain different sets, so pretty much a complete Chaos random hodgepodge of cards here. So taking the highest card quality cards is the best place to generally be, and for our Pack 1 Pick 1 Warrant and Warden is pretty easily the pick. This is a flexible little tempo removal spell for only 2 mana at instant speed, or a 5 mana 4/4 flying vigilance creature. Nice Sarah Angel stat line. That card has always been fantastic and limited, and this is a Sarah Angel with some extra flexibility. So we are starting with a gold card right off the bat, which is a little restrictive, but I think Warrant and Warden is definitely strong enough to scoop up to start off the draft. And we've got a pretty excellent follow-up to that. The Shattered Seraph is going to be really nice mana fixing to help get to Warrant and Warden. If we're playing just white and blue, the Shattered Seraph is even castable off of its own ability, because we can spend 2 mana to exile this to turn one of our lands into a Triome, and then we can cast this from exile later anyway. So it's mana fixing that lets you still keep this big kind of finisher creature in your hand for later, and mana fixes for itself. So for just a blue-white deck, if we ever draw the Seraph, we're still going to be able to cast it later because we make one of our lands a black source. Same is true if we're a blue-black deck or a black-white deck, and this can help splash in the Warrant and Warden if we're only white or only blue. This will find the other color, so I like Shattered Seraph a lot here. Ominous Parcel is also pretty flexible fixing, being able to go into literally any deck as a way to grab a basic land out, and if we draw it late game, kind of a mediocre removal spell, but that is still some flexibility to do something when we don't need a basic land, so I do like that in a format like Chaos Draft, so that would be a solid pick too. But I think Shattered Seraph just being perfectly on color with the Warrant Warden is pretty nice for us. And I think Flyers have been playing quite well in this format, and there's some great Flyers in this pack. So my favorite options here are the Wing Commando and Grasping Thrall as the best rates. The Thrall going to be doing some damage to our opponent just by hitting the board, which is great. The Aven Sentry I think is the worst of these 3 Flyers, so that's why I didn't mention it yet. Just the smallest for its respective mana cost. The Wing Commando requires a little bit of work to buff up, but a 3 mana 2/2 flyer is still okay. So I think I want to take one of these flyers, but there's some decent counter spells as well. Gonna be kind of hard to get Dying to Serve, this rare to do much of anything, so yeah, I think it's a flyer here. I'm gonna go for Wing Commando here. Maybe I'm supposed to be pretty bold here and just scoop up this Grasping Thrall, but I kind of like taking the mono-colored card. I am a little bit of a coward early in these Chaos Drafts. Just take the mono-colored cards when they aren't significantly worse than the multicolored cards like Warrant and Warden. Pick 4. This pack does not look super great. There's another just 4 mana 3/2 flyer with no text. Outside of that, it's probably fine. Could be the pick. There's not a ton of 2-drops. In my experience, I've been drafting a lot of decks that just haven't had a lot of good 2 mana creatures, so just a 2 mana 2/2 Vigilance is probably pretty solid filler. The best cards in here are completely off color from what we're doing, but we could still take one. Clamor Shaman is decent in a really aggressive deck for getting extra damage in by shutting off blockers, and Resistant Skywarden is just a very big, beefy card all by itself. 5 mana 5/5 with 2 very beneficial abilities, Menace and Reach. I guess I'll actually go for Skywarden here. I think if I took something on color, it would just be the 2 mana 2/2 Vigilance, which isn't super exciting, so we'll go for the Skywarden there in case we just completely get pushed off of our potential color trio that we're starting in. Pack 1, pick 5 now. There are a good amount of goblins in Magic in general, so you can probably get enough goblins to do Volley Veteran things in a Chaos Draft. Would definitely be some risk to doing that, but I don't think these white cards are super good. I suppose the Siphon Essence is a pretty great counterspell, countering a creature planeswalker and giving you a blood token to filter out of any extra lands late in the game. You just get to discard a card to draw a card when you're flooding out. Or if you're mana screwed, you can discard a really expensive card to try to draw another land. I'm going to go for Siphon Essence, but I don't think Volley Veteran's actually that risky of a pick. I think probably can get some amount of goblins in the average set. Okay, Okiba Reckoner Raid by an absolute mile is the best card in this pack, so maybe we're starting to push towards blue-black. And we will actually use Shattered Seraph to fix for white. Again, it's early to be completely committed, but this card is just really good. It's a little bit slow. It's not literally a 1-mana 2/2 menace, because it takes a couple turns to flip, but everything you're getting for this card for 1 mana is insane. You're draining your opponent for 2 life and getting a 2/2 menace. You're getting all that for 1 mana, but again, it's not immediately the flipped 2/2. You have to wait a couple turns, but still super worth it. So I'll take Okiba Reckoner Raid there. Now we've got Atlas for fixing. We've got Field Creeper for very mediocre filler card that goes into any deck. If we pick up a lot of artifacts, Scholar of Stars can be pretty good value. But we've got 0 right now, and if I don't take this Atlas, we're probably just going to have 0 by the end of pack 1 anyway. I don't know how likely Scholar is to be good. Most of this pack is very filler anyway, though. Crocodile could be unblockable later. Monstrosity could be unblockable later. Monstrosity is harder to give unblockable. You have to have an exiled card. I think I'm just going to take the Atlas. I think it's between the Atlas and the Scholar here, and I'll just go for the safer pick. Grab the fixing card that can fit into anything. This pack is pretty bad. The Japanese card is a Faithless Looting. Draw 2, discard 2, which isn't horrible, but you are down a card when you play it. Because you're spending a card to draw 2, discard 2, so it's kind of like draw 2, discard 3 because you've discarded the looting, but the flashback sort of makes up for that. If you have any really good cards in your deck you're trying to dig for, it's still definitely playable. That's a little rare. I think I'll just take the Midnight Assassin. Random Flying Death Toucher, not super excited about it, but we're getting late into the packs here. Dwindle is a solid blue removal spell just because blue doesn't get a lot of removal. Give a creature -6, -0, and whenever that creature blocks, it just gets destroyed, it just dies. So it doesn't stop anything with good abilities on the board, but it does stop things from attacking you, and basically stops them from blocking as well. So kind of like a blue pacifism, which isn't great, but it is what it is. Sometimes you gotta use what you can get. Caretaker could be solid in this format again, just trying to splash in any good cards you manage to find as you're sifting through all of the random garbage. But not really on green here. I'm cool to just keep going blue-black and take Vampire Neonate. Good card for grinding out a long game. Blocks 2/2s all day long and starts draining your opponent. 4 life when you run out of stuff to do. Take the mediocre counterspell here over the mediocre flyer, I think, because we're much more looking blue-black here. Splash white at this point. I don't think I want to main deck a Spell Pierce, because your very, very average limited deck is going to be like 17 creatures and 6 non-creature spells, which is not a lot of targets for Spell Pierce. So I'll just take a Hazda Officer, but we're not likely to play that unless we get pushed to white being a primary color. These are all pretty bad, especially Plague Nurse. When there's 1/10 of a pack of Phyrexial will be one, there's 1/10 of a pack of toxic creatures. And we'll take some nonsense we won't be playing and see what we open up in pack 2. Alright, a double red, double white rare. That is not particularly splashable. It is a powerful card, but it is not going to get there for us, so I think we have to pass up on Haktos here. Okay, white card with Lone Rider. If we get a ton of life gain, turning this into a 4/4 first strike trample lifelink is insane, but we do need to get a lot of lifelink, or just a lot of life gain in general to make that consistent. I don't think that's the pick. Yuan-Ti Fangblade is interesting to me. Death Toucher, so it can trade into our opponent's creature no matter how big it is, and if we get the board cleared, this is a repeatable way to venture into the dungeon, so by itself it can accrue a good amount of value if it hits them a couple times. Scry 1 and get a 1/1, or scry 1 and get a treasure, if we're really lucky. I think Fangblade's probably fine. I think that's a little more exciting than Aether Poisoner, but that's pretty good too. Just cheap Death Touchers. I don't think Precipitous Drop's going to be super good in a Chaos draft. 3 mana -2/2, you venture into the dungeon. That was very good in Adventures in the Forgotten Realm draft, But in a chaos draft like this, only having one card in your deck, or 2 or 3 that venture into the dungeon, if it can't do it repeatably, it's kind of like a 3 mana -2/2 aura that scries 1, and that's it. That's all it does. So I think that's just not great, and Deadweight definitely shows off why. This is just 1 mana -2/2, significantly cheaper. We don't get the scry off of it, but still great cheap removal. Omen of the Sea is also a really nice card here. Fevered Visions is interesting. It is symmetrical, so both players draw extra cards, but I guess it shoots your opponent if they don't manage to play them fast enough, but they probably will. I don't think Fevered Visions is gonna be great. We'll take Deadweight here. Now, Toll of the Invasion's a fantastic card. It is kind of a miniature Torment of Golem if you've played any Lord of the Rings drafts lately. 3 mana sorcery. Choose your opponent's best non-land card from their hand, make them discard it, and, this is the really important part, you make a 1/1 when you do it. So you are committing more to the board while also manipulating their hand and getting rid of their next best play. So very, very good card. That is like the one issue with discard spells usually, is that you're not affecting the board in any way while you're doing them, and this gets around that issue. You get at the very least a chump blocker while ripping out the best play from their hand, which just makes the card quite a bit better than if it just didn't put anything on the board. Because yeah, while the 1/1 will be a chump blocker a lot of the time, sometimes your opponent doesn't have a creature out, so it'll get a couple points of damage in. Sometimes you'll have a 2 mana 2/2, and then you'll play that, and all of a sudden now you have 3 power and toughness to be blocking with, so you can trade up into their 3/3 where you couldn't otherwise. Lots of ways to use that 1/1 body. Now we have an Acquisitions Expert, which is kind of similar to Toll of the Invasion, but with this card, our opponent gets to choose what they discard, which is a little bit of a bummer for us, but like 2 mana 1/1s that make your opponent discard a card have still always been solid cards like Virus Beetle and stuff, and this is a little bit better than that. It's a 2 mana 1/2 that makes your opponent discard a card. If you're lucky and you get a lot of creatures that are in the party creature types, clerics, rogues, warriors, and wizards, then you will get a couple options of what to make them discard, so it could be even better, but usually 2 mana 1/2, make your opponent discard a card, still fine. Alright, we got some fun potential cards here, multiple win conditions. We can go for the fun, probably bad one. I mean, it's a strong card, it's just really expensive. The Wizard Spellbook, that lets you just keep recasting stuff from graveyards. Or we could take the Rescuer Sphinx, which is way quicker. If you return a non-land permanent you control when you play it, it's a 4 mana 4/3 flyer. That's just going to kill people in the sky super fast. I think I have to take Rescuer Sphinx here. If it weren't in here, even though I probably should take like Captivating Gyre, I think I would take Spellbook over the Gyre just because it is a pretty fun late game win condition. But I think Sphinx is just so big that I should just scoop that up here. Pack 2, pick 6, there's another repeatable way to venture into the dungeon, so we can take that. We can also take Unknown Shores for splashing in random nonsense. Be fine. But these other cards are just like good aggro cards for other kind of strategies, not really what we're doing. I'll take the Secret Door. Maybe we get enough venturing that Secret Door plus Fangblade stack into going somewhat far into the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Maybe get a little bit of value there. Wildfield Scarecrow is exceptional fixing. 2 basics of any type. I think I'll take that to be flexible. I don't think I just want a hexproof trick. Or a giant crab, maybe a giant turtle. 2 mana 0/5 is kind of insane at instant speed. It's just a blue Doomblade. You just block forever, but no. I'll take the Wildfield Scarecrow. I always want to have that flexibility if I'm opening up any great bombs to fit them in here, because individual bombs go a really far way in this format. We've got a Genie Windseer now, which is pretty great. 4 mana 3/3 flyer that scries 1 when it hits the board is already good, and sometimes it's even better, scries 2 or scries 3. If it does either of those, it's just great. I like Shipwreck Moray a lot as well, but it actually didn't do too much last time I drafted it. But a 4 mana 0/5 that's just super flexible, where it can attack and block as a 0/5 or a 2/3 or a 4/1, depending on how the numbers match up with your opponent's creature, is pretty cool. Take an Aether Poisoner here for a cheap Death Toucher, but it is worth noting that for defensive controlling decks, and decks that are just trying to kill with flyers, a 2 mana 3/3 Defender is actually kind of decent. It's not a bad card, but I do like the 1/1 Death Toucher a little better, because this also gets to spit out a servo if you play it early enough. Now we have Omen of the Sea for the great card draw spell. Happy to take that. Clever Conjurer's fine. Not super exciting, but it's a blue mana ramp card. It can untap a land. If this could untap things at instant speed, it's a pretty spicy card, but only doing it at sorcery speed is like, alright, it's okay. Should probably take a 2-drop here looking at our curve. But I'm definitely not excited about a Vidalcan Mesmerist. Take a Shocking Grasp now. That's a fine cantrip. Fog a couple points of damage and draw a card, sure. We're in a really solid position here. We've already got a 23-card deck, and the whole third pack is just going to be improving it. Pretty happy to see that. See what we get. I might play a Wishcoin Crab, probably not. Ooh, just open up an on-color rare? Is this better than Ominous Sphinx, though? Probably, but like just barely. Man, this is kind of a bummer because it's really hard to choose between these two. A 5-mana 4/4 flyer, like that's what we're doing here. We're trying to kill people with flyers for the most part, but Ayara can fling anything at our opponent for a lot of damage, and we can flip Ayara even if we don't have red mana. Start reanimating things with haste, which is just nuts. I don't know. I feel like I have to take Ayara here, but I really, really love the idea of Ominous Sphinx as well. Just a 5-mana 4/4 flyer, no other text is still great. I'm gonna take Ayara though. Ooh, Memory Deluge, I'll take that. I don't have a lot of cycling or discard for Ruthless Sniper, but this card was pretty sick in Amonkhet where there was a lot of cycling. Then just every time you cycle a card, you also put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. It's pretty rude. But we'll take Memory Deluge, fantastic instant speed card draw. Look 4 cards deep, pick the best 2, put them into your hand, then you flash it back and dig 7 cards deep. Super great stuff there. What have we got now? Eternal of Harsh Truths. That's pretty real. 3 mana for 1/3. If we ever attack with it and it isn't blocked, we draw a card. If we attack and it is blocked, it does 2 to our opponent's face. Just make them lose 2 life. Seems fine. Bind the Monster is also fine. Interaction. We are pretty low on removal. I've got like a counterspell, a dwindle, a deadweight. Not a lot that can kill something really big, but at the same time, if I have to play a Bind the Monster on something really big, I'm also shooting myself in the face for a lot of damage, in which case, if they've been aggressive at all, I'll probably still die, so I will take the Eternal of Harsh Truths, but I would ideally like to find more removal. Wither Crown sort of counts, but we see some excellent flyers competing with it. Falcon Abomination for a 3-mana 2/2 flyer that comes with a zombie, or Murder of Crows for a big top-end flyer. 5-mana 4/4 flyer, and when any creature dies, you draw a card, discard a card. It's pretty sick. I'm going to take the Murder of Crows, but Abomination is also fantastic. There's a lot of great cards we might be able to get back here, because there's Falcon Abomination, and Unseal the Necropolis, and Wither Crown. Wither Crown I would not say is a great card, but it's something that we could use in this deck. So I think we'll get something decent for our strategy back out of that pack. Okay, this pack is not good. Gustwalker's great in aggressive decks, but I don't want to splash in a 2-mana card. So I'll take the Oilcaster and not be super happy about it. Probably will cut it. I will be incredibly happy about a Frost Trickster. Excellent flyer, 3-mana 2/2 flyer, tap a creature down, stun it for a turn. Insane card. There's a non-flying version of this called the Frost Lynx. I already like that card. Just a 3-mana 2/2 that taps and locks down a creature for a turn is a solid tempo play. And this is just that with flying. That has just got extra gravy. Larger zombies okay. We definitely don't need more fixing. I'm probably cutting all the fixing that I ended up taking because we haven't gotten anything incredible we're trying to splash in. I guess I could splash in a cut short here. That's an option. But yeah, I already have enough fixing to put my 1 copy of Warden into the deck. Because the other thing about Warden is if I don't hit my white source, then I can just cast Warrant for double blue. Gotta love the really confusing naming convention of the Ravnica Allegiance and Guilds of Ravnica split cards. That is a real quick, just tongue twister way for me to not know what word I'm saying. Warrant and Warden, and all of them are named like that, where it's two things that sound super similar. These double-faced cards. Alright, I'll just take the only potentially... Actually, I'll hold down the Alt key here. Okay, I own everything. Then I'll... There's like a 0% chance I'm splashing this in. Yeah, I'll take the uncommon. Vault Progress. Speed that up a little faster. What's our vault at right now? 48%. Cool. Not a lot here. I don't remember there being anything that learns a lesson in any of these packs. If there was, I would slam this into the sideboard and see if we can draft that other card. I think I'll just take a Wishful Merfolk as basically like a Moat Piranha here, just a 2-mana 3/2 defender. The one less toughness is actually quite a big deal. Because what's kind of nice... Ooh, we get the Bind Monster at least. What's kind of nice about the Moat Piranhas, just as a 2-mana 3/3 defender, is that it stops your opponent's 2/1s and 2/2s and all that stuff. Basically forever. We do get the Weather Crown back, and I think I will play that. Because I think... Again, while it's not ideal, because if they have any creatures with good abilities on the board, they'll still be using their abilities. It's still fine for a deck that's just trying to win with flyers, if we can just turn their creatures into 0-power creatures, because then it's like, alright, we keep attacking with our flyers, and we turn their best attackers into 0-power creatures, because it's not like they're going to be blocking our stuff. If our opponent resolves like a solid flyer for blocks, that'll be a problem for us. But if they do resolve some big attacking creatures on the ground, we've got the removal to deal with that. It is possible that Frost Breath as a tempo play gets into here, so I'll put it in for now, but I think I'll probably end up cutting it. So here's every single blue, black, and colorless card that we drafted, except for Workshop Assistant, which does literally nothing, and Maze Skullbomb, which would just cycle itself. So we're going to go over every single card on color and see what we want to cut. So first off, gonna make a quick edit in the video as I sort all my non-creature cards into one pile so that I can see my creature curve versus non-creatures without lagging out the deck builder. Alright, so we have sorted out all of our non-creature cards now. I think I'm going to treat Warrant as mostly a non-creature spell. That way we can keep the mana based super consistent, because just playing this as a tempo play is pretty great. Only 2 mana to bounce their creature and basically make your opponent skip their next draw step, because they'll have to redraw whatever creature you bounced. So that's pretty good. That's an effect you'd usually get in limited for about 4 mana. So if we have to use Warrant because we don't have a white source, it's really not that big of a deal. So I think even with just like 2 white sources in the whole deck, this card is super, super playable. Even with 0, honestly, it's probably better than whatever we're going to end up cutting. So I'm going to cut down to like... I could see an argument for running literally 0 planes in this deck, and just like if we hit Shattered Seraph, we'll play the 4/4. Otherwise, the 2-mana bounce spell is great, but I think I am still gonna run 1 planes in here. And it's possible that I might want to run the Wildfield Scarecrow still, but I might cut that as well. If I run the Wildfield Scarecrow, that's 3 white sources between Shattered Seraph, Wildfield Scarecrow, and the Plains. The issue with that, or the reason that I wouldn't want to do that, is that I don't think Wildfield Scarecrow is super great when we don't need a white source. Like if we draw this anytime that we don't need a white source, it's just a 1/4 defender, which does do kind of what we want our ground creatures to do, which is just hold up the fort on the ground while we beat down in the sky, but doesn't do it super efficiently or super well or anything, so I don't love that. I definitely don't love Phyrexian Atlas. As you can see by our mana curve, we've got a mountain of stuff at 3 mana, and not much above 4 mana, so we don't really need the mana ramp at all, and the only thing we need the fixing for is the Warden. So I think we can cut Phyrexian Atlas for sure. And again, I might just cut Wildfield Scarecrow. Looking at our creature curve, there are a lot of creatures we could cut out of here, and that's probably what I'm going to get started on next. Start off at 1 mana. I don't think we're going to have a ton of creatures out super often for larder zombie to start surveilling, but a 1/3 is quite the blocker. A 0/4 is an even bigger blocker. I think I'll keep in the secret door over the larder zombie. Definitely keep the Okiba Reckoner raid, drain our opponent for some life, get an evasive threat. For now, I'll keep the Neonate, but I could see that being another cut. A little bit of extra life drain's cool. It blocks 2/2s forever. Think I will definitely cut some of these 2-drops, particularly the Vidalcan Mesmerist here. 2 mana 2/1, no evasiveness. It does kind of shut off one of their blockers for a few turns in a row. If you play this on turn 2 and then they just play like a 2 mana 2/2 or something, you can make it so that's not going to block well, but as soon as they play a 3/3 or a 2/3 or something, it's still just going to get walled off. The Wishful Merfolk, as I was saying before, having only 2 toughness is a really big problem with this, because it means it's still going to trade into 2/2s and 2/1s. It's not super worth the mana investments to get it attacking and the defender ability in general. Definitely keep the Acquisitions Expert as a 2-for-1, and the Aether Poisoner is a great way to trade off into a gigantic attacker. Again, we don't really need mana ramp, and a 3 mana 2/3 is not an exciting body, so we'll cut the Clever Conjurer. Definitely keep Eternal of Harsh Truths, Frost Trickster, Wing Commando as fantastic cards. Midnight Assassin, a little worse. We have Death Touchers on the ground between Poisoner and Yanti Fangblade, and we have bigger flyers. This is kind of splitting the bill between those two aspects and not doing either of them super well for it. So I think I will be cutting that. Then we have Toll of the Invasion for another incredible discard spell. Yanti Fangblade. If we clear the path, it'll be great, but we're not super good at clearing the path. We could still run this as a way to just trade off into a big attacker, but I'm considering cutting that as well. Definitely keep Ayara in here. 3 mana 3/3 on curve, maybe fling some stuff at our opponent, maybe reanimate some stuff from grave for a couple hits. Definitely keep Genie Windseer. Wishcoin Crab, just a beefy blocker, a little less exciting for sure. Rescuer Sphinx is fantastic. We are absolutely keeping that in. Tenured Oilcaster. I think it's better than the Wishcoin Crab. It's got 1 less toughness, but it has Menace, and potentially very late into the game, it'll be a 5/4 Menace, which is kind of nuts, but most of the time, 4 mana 2/4 Menace, not great. Still better than the Crab, but probably also a cut. And then we'll definitely keep the gigantic flyers in the Murder of Crows and the Shattered Seraph. So keep those in here. If I cut all these creatures, I still need to cut 3 more cards. So keep the Bind the Monster to get rid of smaller creatures. This will ideally be our removal spell when our opponent plays a flyer or a reach creature of their own. Ideally not something we're casting on a 4 power creature or better, but on anything with 3 or less power, it's pretty reasonable. Deadweight is excellent against anything with 2 or less toughness. Omen of the Sea is a nice flexible draw spell. Shocking Grasp, decent little cantrip, but probably the weakest card we've looked at so far, so I'll put it in a separate pile. Wither Crown, again, just stopping creatures from attacking us on the ground while we try to chip in with our flyers. Warden is certainly staying. Dwindle is the same as Wither Crown. Frost Breath can be really good when we're tempoing things out and we've got a lot of flyers, but it's pretty bad if all it's doing is prolonging the inevitable when we don't have a decent aggressive board state. If I'm purely on the defensive and I'm just using this to buy some time, we're just going to end up down a card overall, because it doesn't kill anything, doesn't trade with anything, doesn't redraw a card. It's simply just something that's going to delay things for a moment, so I don't think it's super good here. Siphon Essence definitely is, because we get to counter something and get a blood token, the blood token being super important, and Memory Deluge is a fantastic card draw. But then Urza's rebuff as well, 3 mana counter plus mana restrictive requiring double blue, but this one's flexible. Counter or tap some creatures. But these would be the 3 cuts. I mean, Wildfield Scarecrow's in that pile as well. Do have a lot of 3 mana creatures here. Yeah, I think we're cutting 3 of these 4 cards. And I think ideally we're not trying to get into combat too often. I mean, we're getting into combat. We're attacking with creatures, but we're trying not to have too many combats where like our creatures are attacking and blocking stuff. We're trying to be really just kind of uninteractive during combat with a bunch of flying stuff, so I don't think Shocking Grasp is excellent. There's still very little cost to running it since it replaces itself by drawing a card, but I think I can just cut that here and then cut Frost Breath because it's also kind of situational. Scarecrow and just play Warrant as mostly Warrant. And then we just keep the counter spell. So I've got 2 counter spells in here. Since I don't really have anything to just permanently get rid of something on board, it's all either enchantment-based removal or a bounce spell. So hopefully we can just time our 2 counter spells well with Siphon Essence and Urza's rebuff, and Memory Deluge can help with that a lot, as will Warrant, where we can hold up these kind of spells, and if I don't need to warrant something, I get to hold up a counter spell. If I don't need to counterspell something, maybe I get to hold up a Memory Deluge. Maybe these together can help us out a bit there. So I think this will be the final deck list. We could definitely make some different options, maybe cut like a Vampire Neonate or something for a Wildfield Scarecrow, if I really, really, really want to get that 4/4 flyer down, but I think overall looks like a very solid place to be. Alright, so here's a look at the final deck list for today. We're on a blue-black Flyers deck with a lot of great defenses on the ground, a lot of high-toughness cards like Secret Door, Vampire Neonate, and some Death Touchers like Aether Poisoner. We've got some decent interaction in terms of a bunch of ways to make their creatures 0 power between Dwindle and Wither Crown. Also Deadweight for early removal, Bind the Monster for early removal, and Warrant for a bounce spell. So we're just trying to lock down our opponent's creatures long enough to get some flyers down and keep chipping in. We've got cards like Wing Commando, Frost Trickster, Rescuer Sphinx, Genie Windseer, Murder of Crows, and Shattered Seraph for some pretty beefy flyers throughout the top end of the curve, as well as the potential to play a Warden if we don't need to play Warrant early in the game and we manage to hit our Plains or our Shattered Seraph first. So that is another just very beefy flyer we might have access to. We've also got a little bit of decent disruption with counterspells like Urza's Rebuff and Siphon Essence, as well as hand disruption with Toll of the Invasion, and one very good piece of card draw with Memory Deluge, and one fine piece with Omen of the Sea. So a pretty flexible, super solid looking deck today, really consistent looking one. Hopefully it plays out as well as it looks in my head, but we'll find out soon enough as we head into the gameplay and see how it does. Here we are on the play for game 1. We're not going to be starting off till turn 3, but from that point on we've got potentially an excellent curve. If they don't play anything I really need to dwindle, we get to play Wing Commando into Rescuer Sphinx and just get jamming in for some flying damage. Not going to be the beefiest Rescuer Sphinx because we've got nothing to bounce for it, but should still be fine for us. And I suppose I could always play the Sphinx and pick up the Commando just to make it a 4/4. Or not a 4/4, but a 4/3. Ooh, Blade Juggler is a fantastic card. One of the top commons in Ravnica Allegiance, the set it was printed. It's a 3-mana 3/2 that draws you a card when it hits the board if you pay it for the spectacle cost, which just means they had to damage us to do that, but they certainly did. I do have the mana to play Dwindle plus Bind the Monster, and then I have some stuff down for Rescuer Sphinx. I don't think I really want to kill these tiny things, though. They are outracing me a little bit with them, but if I get a couple prowess triggers, Wing Commando will win the race by a tiny bit. So I think I'm just going to slam down the Rescuer Sphinx as a 3/2 and pass from there. There's a Guild Globe, which draws them a card when they play it, and they can sacrifice it for 2 different colors of mana. I was going to say any combination of 2 colors, but it has to be 2 different colors. But still generally the same thing. Okay. So I can play a Secret Door and still hold up a Warrant, and the door's big enough to block the 3/2. If I play a Dwindle or a Bind the Monster, I do buff the Wing Commando and get 1 extra point of damage in here, but I think I'd rather save these removal spells for potentially something bigger, and I can just warrant something if I really need to. If they play like a big aura or something crazy. There's improvised weaponry, that's very good. Going to kill our big flyer and give them a treasure token. Ew, and they have a bamboo grove archer? That's definitely a bummer. Alright, let's force our opponent to redraw a 2-1, because it is not a good draw this next turn. And we get to take 0 damage by doing that. I can dwindle the archer and then it can only block once, or I can just bind it and then it just never blocks at all. Could venture into the dungeon, gain a life, scry 1, or have each player lose a life, but none of those are great right now. I think I will bind the archer and deadweight the juggler and just slam in for 4 here and still have a dwindle for their next threat that matters. But the papercraft decoy I can just keep blocking with the secret door indefinitely. Kazandu Stomper, well, there is our dwindle target. They are going to pick up a Scoured Baron so they can replay it and gain a life next turn. And since they gained that life, they'll be at 7, so they'll be on a 4-turn clock instead of a 3-turn clock unless I draw into a non-creature spell. Then they'll still be on a 3-turn clock since I'll get 3 damage on one of my swings. Aww. Well, did mention during the draft how explosive and important bombs are in this format. We didn't find any bombs, but our opponent certainly did with Orcus, Prince of Undeath, a 5/3 trample that also just wiped our only important creature off the board when it came into play. Incredibly flexible card too. It could have just like reanimated something and killed me in the future. Orcus is super hard to beat unless I had my counterspell at exactly the right time, and I haven't drawn any of my counters this game, so even dwindling the Orcus would not have helped us here, because then we're dying to a 6/5 trample. Orcus will just be that way. I need to wait until I draw another land to play Seraph, so if I draw it, I just play a land and use Secret Door. I trade into Orcus if they have nothing and get trampled for 2, go to 8. I don't know if I have time for Shattered Seraph, because if they have anything, they blow up the Windseer and kill me in 2 attacks. And again, if I have Seraph on top and they do that, then they blow up Windseer, hit me for 5, I draw Seraph and can't cast it, and then I die. Why can't I move the cards? I guess I can't scry. I can only click done. I'm going to reboot, because I think I'm supposed to put these on the bottom. I mean, scrying both to the top was a potential option here, as long as it doesn't skip my turn, and I play land for turn, scrying both to the top is fine. Okay, cool. Now I can scry. I'm going to put them on the bottom. And I will pass. Well, I made the right choice, because they had removal. So if I kept both on top, I just die. Because I draw Seraph without the 7 mana yet. I guess I had the mana to use Secret Door to gain 1 life and maybe not die, but they can play the Papercraft Decoy. I guess the door blocks that. So yeah, I would be at 1 by the time that I play the Seraph. But the problem with that is I don't have the mana to exile the Seraph on one of my lands and activate the Secret Door. So I actually couldn't have done that. So yeah, I would have been dead. Okay, I've got the Wither Crown for the Orcus, and I can just block Papercraft Decoy. So they sack Orcus. Drawn to the Rhythm of the Wild, so any creatures they play can't be countered, and they can play them with haste. So they're going to play a hasty Rutstein? No, go for the 2/5 Rutstein. They can do a +1/+1 counter as well. Rutstein's kind of another bomb. It's not as... I drew the rebuff now that I can't counter anything they play. But Rutstein's not, like, a very obvious... I think I have to just use Door, because I can only counter non-creatures from them now. Anyways, Rutstein's not as obvious of a bomb where it immediately wins, but it accrues so much value over time. Probably do need a poisoner on blocks. Alright, they mill Path to the Festival, which means they get another blood token, so they have 2 ways to filter out a mana flood. Plus they hit a flashback card off the Rutstein mill, so they kind of like drew an extra card this turn. Because they can just do that, and they scry when they use it. Alright, very good work done by Rutstein so far. Take my 2 damage, go to 3, and then I have the Poisoner, so they can't just kill me with Rutstein attacking. They can only attack with Decoy until they get some insects. This is non-tokens only, right? Yeah, so their insects won't have haste, at least, or +1/+1 counters, if they get any of those. Still getting a ton of value, though. I guess maybe I should have ventured into the dungeon to get a treasure token and then played Poisoner. Yes, I would have to use the treasure immediately to play the Poisoner, but it would mean I'm closer to chapter 3 and 4, so I'm closer to the card draw. I could have seen maybe it was Secret Door, make a treasure, do that there, but I guess I'm holding up rebuff, which means I could counter a non-creature if they draw into removal, or if they draw into a big hasty creature that's just going to kill me, I can tap 2 things. Although a big hasty creature I can trade Poisoner into. Okay, so they draw into removal, so we get lucky and it plays out better. I think maybe, though, I probably should have just went into the mine tunnels and played Poisoner. In hindsight, my play actually worked out better because we got lucky, but probabilistically thinking, statistically speaking, I think that was a turn to just get a treasure and spend the treasure on Poisoner to get to level 2 of the dungeon. All right. And maybe I should have still gotten the treasure just so I could go to the fungi cavern. The fungi cavern. I guess it's technically pronounced. I like saying fungi though. It's just a fun way to say it. Fungi's also fun. Oh, that's a great removal spell for them against our deck. And an excellent draw. So now I have to trade in a Papercraft Decoy, which means they get to draw a card off of it and try to find another creature. But it's certainly better than just chumping. Alright, Reckoner Raid is not nothing. Do I make my Secret Door a 1/5 or do I go to 4 life? I don't think 4 is really that much more than 3. I guess I'd be going to 5 instead of 4 since Reckoner Raid gains life. I think I just make the door a 1/5. Just get sturdy in there. You'll not break through this door. Oh my god, our opponent's deck is incredible. Hasty Nullhide Ferox now. This matchup's terrible. I'm glad we're not in best 2 out of 3 draft, because could you imagine if we had a discard spell early when they had that in their hand and they just chose to discard that? If we had our 2-mana 1/2 where they get to choose what they discard, then they get to discard this and put it on the board for free. But yeah, they also have Lingering Souls to get milled off of Old Rutstein, which is one of the best flashback cards ever printed. Get 2 flyers there. Opponent has like the 4-color Dream deck. We haven't seen any blue cards, but they definitely had the card quality in here to splash around for some stuff. I took some fixing, so I could have, but I don't remember seeing anything great to try to splash in. So yeah, they got Orcus, Old Rutstein, Nullhide Ferox, Lingering Souls. Definitely a little jelly here. They got some great stuff going on. I hope this is on their time. I hope Arena's not glitching out again. Okay, it's on their time. Cool. That was a little awkward earlier when just wouldn't let me scry, so I had to reboot. So I was a little concerned it was doing something similar again. Well, there's like nothing in our deck that's Omen of the Sea is going to find for us here, but we can still play it out here. See what we would have gotten. Land. Let's see what we get behind those. I could sack this Inscribe before it resolves, but it's just an Eternal, which chumps the Ferox, and I take 4. So we are dead on board. And that is going to end the game. Ooh, a Titty Bearer as well. Gigantic creature that draws them a card when it hits the board. So they've got great card advantage as well with multiple 2-for-1 creatures. The Tithe Bearer and the 3/2 Blade Juggler that draws them a card when it hits the board. The Papercraft Decoy sort of counts if it doesn't die till later in the game, then they can spend the 2 and draw another card off of it. So really excellent deck from our opponent. They got great mana fixing in their draft pot as well with Refractor and Guild Globe. Very well drafted deck, super powerful stuff in the pod as well. Is going to crush us for round 1. So we are 0-1 as we head into round number 2. Here we are now for game 2. We are going to annoy the heck out of our opponent here. Also, we got beautiful mana. We've got the white source for if we draw the Warrington Warden. But this is a card advantage hand right here. Make them discard a card of their choice, make them discard a card of our choice, and then draw 2 cards out of the top 4. That is some value right there. So opponent started with an Evolving Wilds for a mountain. Very nice card in this format, where you definitely want to be splashing most of the time. If not, just trying to draft a full 5-color deck if you open great enough bombs to be splashing around for. Faith Unbroken, alright. I will happily get rid of that, because it's kind of like a removal spell. It's a removal spell until we deal with whatever creature they put it on, which our deck is not very good at doing, so happy to get rid of a Faith Unbroken. There's an Exemplar of Strength. It's a 1/1, but every time it attacks, it gets bigger. So it turns into a 2/2 they gain life, turns into a 3/3 they gain life, turns into a 4/4 they gain life. Doesn't get any bigger than a 4/4, but still spooky. I've got the mana to bind it right now while it's still a 1/1, but I think I would rather toll them immediately and just bind. Next turn, maybe take 1 more damage, and oh my god. What a deck yet again. Where do they find these rares? I mean, I've played with some nasty stuff myself. My favorite card I've played with so far in these mixed up Premier drafts has been the Gargos, the giant Hydra, but certainly nothing Eternal Wanderer level quality. So Frost Trickster is a very solid draw, because now I have the mana to play Frost Trickster and bind the monster in the same turn, which feels like a pretty good deal. To do that instead of Memory Deluge. We know they have an Airdrop Aeronauts eventually, but that'll take 2 more turns. They play Blossoming Sands. Yeah, they'll play the Aeronauts next turn as a 4/3 flyer. That'll be a little bit annoying, but I've got the Deluge to find a way to deal with that. And the Rallier can't attack alone, so it's not going to do anything next turn. I think I Deluge now, because I haven't played a land this turn, so if I do end up picking up a land with this, which I'm going to, I will get to play a land this turn and next turn. If I draw into another, then I can play Murder of Crows and Neonate, and there's the Wither Crown to deal with the flyer they're about to play. We'll just Wither Crown it so we can keep jamming in. This can block alone, which is annoying. Oh, top deck Outlaws Merriment. They have the Wandering Emperor and Outlaws Merriment. Speak of the bombs and they shall appear. At the beginning of their upkeep, they get a 3/1 trample haste or a 2/1 lifelink haste or a 1/2 that deals 1 to any target. And they just do that every turn, period. There's no ifs and or buts about that. Okay. How do we deal with that? I guess we just outrace them in the sky. That's the plan here. So play our beefy flyers and just keep attacking in the sky then. We're not going to do anything on the ground. Okay, they're going to get the 1/2 and kill my 1/1. Which means we get to draw and discard off Murder of Crows, which is cool. Ooh, there's a 4/4 Flying Vigilance. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I have to discard Ayara. So I can make a 4/4 Flying Vigilance, and I can Wither Crown their airdrop aeronauts to stop them from blocking our flyers well. I can't do these both in one turn, but we'll do them both eventually. So for now, it's Wither Crown to get attacks in. They can block Frost Trickster for free, so maybe I should have just held that back, but hey, this means if they just trump here because they want to sack this to Wither Crown anyway, then we do get 2 damage and we wouldn't have otherwise. So we'll take that, we draw and discard a card again, discard this land and drop a Secret Door. I have the mana to play the Secret Door and hold up Neonate. Not holding up Warrant, but I don't want to cast Warrant, I want to cast Warden. They get another human rogue. Maybe they have a burn spell in their hand. Maybe they shoot the crows and play a lightning strike for the additional 3 or something. Otherwise, I'm surprised they went for a 1/2 here. Alright, they're just going to shoot my face. Fair enough. Oh, sorry, I'm completely illiterate. My mistake. It chooses at random. They don't get to choose. That's the kicker. That's the if and... or that's the but. All right. Now I understand. Still a very good card. But yeah, they didn't get to choose what they're making here. That makes a lot of sense. Ooh, struggle for Skemfar? Well, they trade at least, so it's not completely terrible for me, but losing my 4-power flyer slows down my clock quite a bit. Disappointing. I guess I shouldn't have drawn and discarded there, because Warden is the best card in my deck. Nothing I would draw I would keep over the Warden. So yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was just choosing to mill one for fun. It was fun, though, so maybe it was worth it in the grand scheme of life. Alright, poke them down to 8. Here's a Warden. We can hit them twice with the Sphinx, and they will die unless they get a lifelink. They got a lifelink. I can trade my 1/2 into the lifelinker, so at least it won't gain them life twice. I think I'd rather do that than block with the 4/4 flyer, just to play around potential burn. But there's a fine argument for blocking with the flyer, because if they don't have burn, it's so much better to just not lose a creature. This flyer is incredibly important to me, though. They're my new best friend, and you can't convince me to block with them right now. Alright, cool. Lifelinker is gone. Okay. Could venture into the dungeon or drain them for 1 life. I feel like venturing's better by a tiny bit. Scry 1 and get closer to a more powerful ability. They're at 4 life though, so it's actually kind of a hard sell. Because they're at 4 life, if they don't randomly get the lifelinker, which they didn't, then neonating now and neonating during our turn puts them to 2, which means even if they kill the Sphinx, the Frost Trickster kills them. So yeah, I mean, probably better to use Neonate instead of Venture, although at that point I could have chosen to venture into the Tomb of Annihilation if I wanted to. Alright, they are just going to scoop them up, and we are going to find a victory in round 2 through the Outlaw's Merriment thing, which was a pretty cool card. I was very close to going that whole game just not realizing that it picked at random. But glad I reread the card at least. So we are 1-1 now as we head into game number 3. Here we are for game 3 with a super sus mana base that I shouldn't be keeping. But it's your boy Wario X back in the building. I like Genie Windseer and I like Deluge, and I'm not getting rid of them. You can pry them from my cold dead hands that loses to keeping this. We drew a 3-drop. That's an excellent start. I think genuinely if our opening hand was 4 islands and these 3 cards, I would say that's not a greedy keep. That's a keep right there. So, kind of balanced out. Uh-oh. Getting aggroed, and Withercrown does not work against Roaring Earth. Because if their creature has a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, it's going to be a 0-power creature with +2/+2, +3/+3. So that is super awkward. Even though we hit the black source, Withercrown, pretty bad against the Unwilling Ingredient in the first place since it gives them value from their grave, but super bad when they have the Roaring Earth as well. So this is bad. Okay. Not as terrible as it could be, since at least they spent turn 3 just getting more mana. Do I just bind the monster right now and preserve my life total? Then they play a 4-mana creature, then play land for turn and put a counter on that creature, and then I maybe Withercrown that. The mana lines up a little awkwardly, where either way, if I play Commando this turn, I only have the mana to do one thing next turn. I guess if I Commando now, I can bind and Withercrown next turn, but I can't like Windseer and do anything else. But also, if I bind now, I can't Commando plus Withercrown next turn. It's one thing per turn regardless. Yeah, I mean, if I don't bind this thing, it's going to be a 3/3 menace, and it's only going to get worse for me. My removal's pretty bad in this matchup, I imagine, because they are black-green, which means it's likely they have sacrifice effects, especially with Unwilling Ingredient, cards that care about being in the grave. Okay. Infectious Horror. Alright, well, awkward part about that is that Withercrown's super bad against that, because even if it had 0 power, it would keep draining life from me. I actually have the mana to play Wing Commando and flash in Omen of the Sea, so I think I'll keep that. And that's probably my play. But yeah, since they have Roaring Earth and that ability to make me lose life, Withercrown again looks super bad. It looks fine against the 3/3. I'll probably just Wing Commando and Withercrown the 3/3 at this rate. Sure. Yes. And I'm not going to attack because my hand is pretty good at winning the long game because I have Memory Deluge in it. That's going to be a draw 4 over time. So I just want to make sure that I'm leveraging these creatures to trade off into their stuff. Because if I attack with Windseer just to hit them back to 20 life, which is not a great hit, then they could just play a land, make this a 3/3 attack, and I have nothing that can trade into it. So I want to make sure I still have a 3/3 up to trade into the Horror if they play a land and buff it. They're missing a lot of land drops, which is both good and bad. It's good because it means the Horror is not a 3/3 yet, but it's bad because it means that these are all gas. All 3 of those are spells. I can just hold up 6 mana and double buff Wing Commando and maybe find a Trixie block here. As tempting as Murder of Crows is, it's probably better to have the double prowess block. And if they make Lurcher a 4/4, I will probably just double prowess to take the trade. Again, trying to win off of card advantage here, with Deluge plus Omen coming up. I would rather they just kill the Wing Commando, because I don't know how many instant speed spells I'm going to have after this, so I don't think I should double block. I could double block to play around a combat trick a little bit, maybe. But if it's any, like, decent combat trick, they'll just kill both my creatures if I double block. But I don't want to give them the option to choose to kill the Windseer instead of the Wing Commando. I just want them to kill the Wing Commando. So we're just hoping for no trick here, because again, the only way I play around a trick, actually I do kind of want 7 mana for the recast of Deluge, but I think I don't want to just tap out and recast it next turn, so I'll take Deadweight for now to kill the Horror. Anyways, as I was saying, I think it's better for their combat trick to just kill Commando than kill my whole board, so... I like Dwindle. I like Secret Door more than Okiba Reckonerate, actually, because I am a grindy doofus over here. Cool. No combat trick. Feels great. Rage Scarred Berserker. Oh, they could have just did an indestructible attack. So happy that that came down post-combat, but that is still a 5/4, which is an issue. Let's just deal with everything, I guess. Deadweight the Horror, Dwindle the Berserker. It can still get big enough to hit me over time, but it'll take a couple turns. I mean, I guess with the secret door, it's basically never going to get big enough. They'd have to play 5 lands to make it 4 power again. Do I play around Graveyard Hate here and just Deluge? Next turn. I think if I hit a land, the play is like really easily just Murder of Crows and sack the Omen of the Sea. Maybe if I don't hit a land and I have exactly 7 mana but not 8, I should just Deluge instead of Murder of Crows. But I feel like if they don't get to like play out any more creatures here, it's probably best to just start pressuring their life total. Give them less draw steps to find something scary. I don't know. Definitely merits to either way. Okay, I do hit a land, which means I've got enough mana to play Murder and Scry 2, which I think is slightly better than just straight draw 2 here. Because I get a 4/4 flyer down, and I'm still kind of setting up my draws a bit. The slightly awkward bit is that I do have that Rescuer Sphinx that's very good with Omen of the Sea, because if I draw into that, I can pick up the Omen of the Sea and recast it. And obviously, if I sack the Omen of the Sea, then I can't pick that up anymore. But oh no! I was just saying, do I play around Graveyard Hate in the Chaos draft, and then they had the Graveyard Hate, so Memory Deluge isn't going to work. I actually don't remember how it works. If I try to cast this and they respond by Rotten Reunioning it, I don't remember if it resolves or not. I imagine it doesn't. I'll look it up real quick. I think it doesn't. Alright, I looked it up. It turns out if I cast Memory Deluge and they respond by exiling it from grave, it's too late, it's already on the stack. So I should just do this right now the second that I have the opportunity to do it, so they can't just Rotten Reunion it. It's on the stack, it's not in the grave, they can't stop me from doing it. Boom. Beautiful. Take the Rescuer Sphinx, and boom, since I did that instead of cracking Omen, we found the Rescuer Sphinx on the Omen. And I just kind of forgot to crack Omen during their end step. That wasn't an active choice there, but it worked out for me, I guess. Do I take a counterspell here, or do I just take Ayara? That's kind of a hard choice. I've already got a pretty firm lock on the board. Let's take a counterspell. Cool. So we get to play around the Rotten Reunion by just immediately casting that. Flashback spell. They're dead, and just a couple more attacks. They still have not found land 5. That's pretty rough for them if they have like a 6 or 7 mana card in their hand. Alright, there's an Almighty Brushwag, absolutely adorable card with a pretty great mana sink ability. And they're going to buff it up with some counters, since it is a trampler. Let's just keep doing our thing, getting in there with the flyers. One more swing till it's over. They are down to 3. And I can Rescuer Sphinx for more card draw while still holding up Urza's rebuff. Pass the turn. Probably should have played the land. If I haven't played a land yet this turn, I should have played that so I could cast Omen and rebuff. I'm just trying to play kind of fast here. It's not big enough to matter. We will let that resolve. They'll still just die next turn. If they attack with it, I'll just take all the damage, because whatever they cast afterward to try to turn it into lethal, potentially, I can just counter that instead. Unless there's some uncounterable way to give like +9/+9, which... I mean, there could be. It's Chaos Draft. There's cards from all over Arena. But I don't think there is. Down to 9. The zombies get their long, drawn-out sack ability. The Murder of Crows adds to the stack, just delaying everything a little longer. And they pass the turn. We are going to attack for lethal in the sky. And the Flyers are back at it again. We are now 2-1 as we head into round number 4. Here we are now on the play for game 4 with a turn 1 Okiba Reckoner raid. I don't care what else is in the hand, that's got me very excited. We're going to start things off with a bang. With a sick rat with the super sick leather jacket. I love how the backside of this, once it's a creature, literally all you see is the leather jacket. You don't even see the creature himself. That's super great. Very spiffy, though. Fibblethip, what are you doing way out there? Get back over here. I guess he's just waiting for our opponent to choose if they're going to mulligan or not. It's not break time right now, Fibblethip. I guess the joke is that Fibblethip's totally lost right now. He's like, wait a sec, where's the pet zone? I hope Arena's not messing up again. Alright, well, spoiler alert, Arena was not messing up for us, but our opponent, I think, completely timed out of their mulligan decision. So we'll see if they can make it back on, or if their arena's just permanently crashed, or something came up, or what's going on here. Alright, they have arrived just in time. So we get our turn 1 Okiba Reckoner raid. Our opponent starts with turn 1 Swamp. Let's drop a Seraph onto a Swamp here. So I have access to white mana, most importantly, but now I also have double blue. Since I already have a second Swamp, I've already got double black if I need that. Ooh, Bloodtithe Harvester is their first play of the game. Incredible card, sees a bunch of standard play. Very solid way to load things up, or start things off. I'd rather Deadweight than Bind the Monster, since Bind the Monster can go onto more cards than just a 3/2, but Deadweight can only go onto 2 toughness cards. Oh, speaking of 3/2s, I don't really want to trade my 2/2 Menace into that, but it might be correct to. On the backside, whenever a werewolf hits their board, they can transform it. Most importantly, it's a 4/3. Because I don't imagine they've drafted a lot of werewolves, but all the Innistrad sets I think are in the Chaos Draft. I don't have too much follow through until I hit 7 mana, so I probably shouldn't trade off my only creature when I have 3 removal spells here. Okay, well, Secret Door also blocks the bandit. Until it flips, but I am just going to bind it here. Alright, we are still stuck on 3 mana, so pretty glad I didn't just immediately trade off the Road Captain, because it is going to be quite some time till Shattered Seraph. At the current rate. Once we hit 5 mana, we can start using Secret Door to try to head into the treasure tunnels, whatever it's called. Mine tunnels. Festival Crasher, that can be pretty explosive, as can the Song Shaper, but neither of those are going to be explosive together. Crasher gets bigger till end of turn for instants and sorceries. Song Shaper gets bigger till end of turn for artifacts. They have established a good enough board state to block my Nezumi Road Captain. Wither crowning a Song Shaper is slightly more impactful than doing it to a Festival Crasher. Whichever one I Wither crown, they can just double block Road Captain. Take nothing. Probably just pass here. Not in love with it. There's land number 5 for their Rakdos deck, their black-red deck. Please don't blow up my door. Severed Strands. I'm in a Chaos draft and I'm getting got by the same sacrifice removal spell twice in a row. Why they gotta be so good against my deck? I guess Dwindle would have been pretty reasonable last turn, since even if it gets +2/+0, Dwindle's still reducing it a lot. So far in the fence, if I have to just trade the Road Captain now, I might. I just trade the Road Captain here, I can Dwindle the Crasher, I can Wither Crown their next play, and then we're just waiting on Seraph. Kinda hate that. But I think it is where I'm at. We're not outracing these things, even if they don't trigger either of them. I'm hitting them for 2, then they're hitting me for 3. And if they trigger one or the other, I'm really not outracing them. Alright, they got one card in their hand, so they're starting the race off up a card. But I can save the Dwindle for something other than the Festival Crasher, because this isn't going to be that effective when they only have one card in hand. Alright, they play a Dwarven Mine, discard a Swamp, draw a card. I probably would have been greedy there, just held on to the Mine, but maybe they miscounted. The Mine, if they have 3 mountains, then it comes with a 1/1. So I would have still discarded the Swamp and drawn a card, but I wouldn't have played Dwarven Mine until maybe I top deck another mountain. Alright, boom, big turn here. We hit land 7, we play the Seraph. And there's that. Do they have the removal? Have they drawn it these last few turns while we weren't doing anything? Looks like maybe not. Not yet. We do hit for 4, get that clock started. Keeping the land, we've got 1 or 2 ways to draw a card and discard a card. Maybe just 1, maybe it's only the Murder of Crows. Alright, well they didn't have the removal. They top decked it now. There goes the Seraph. Not perfectly timed, 1 turn off from perfectly timed, but that's probably good enough. I'll keep taking my 1 to 3 damage a turn, saving Dwindle for a bigger creature because they have enough mana to cast anything they draw into. Be really easy for them to get a creature that's more consistently large than Crasher. Wow, and it's got the kicker to give it haste. And we hit another land. Come on, top deck. Goblet needs some spells. Give me a Memory Deluge or something, that'd be beautiful. Oof. Another creature for our opponent, Skeleton Archer. Take 1 from Festival Crasher. They pass turn. There's a Murder of Crows. If they have no removal, it's big enough to block here. If they have removal, we're dead on board. No, it's active treason. You may have misheard me, Arena. I said Gauntlet needs some spells, not Teddy. Alright. We are going to be 2-2 now. Just pretty much lost the top deck war. Not too much else to say about that game. Came down to who's going to draw the gas. And it was not us. Not even close to. They were at 15 still at the end. Dang. Solid aggro stuff over there. 2-2 as we head into game number 5. Here we are now for game 5. We've got a Deadweight into an Acquisitions Expert. Really good start to the game. We've also got the double blue to hold up rebuff on turn 3 and then a Windseer later. I like this hand a whole lot. We drew into Toll of the Invasion, so we can just be really annoying again, and you know I'm all about that, so We'll go Acquisitions Expert into Toll of the Invasion. Ooh, we get to rip out their Prophetic Prism? That's super solid. They will not have Fixing. That might just mean they have their splash color in hand already. Or they just don't need the splash there. Let's Toll of the Invasion. This will also help us know exactly when to hold up Urza's rebuff. Oh wow, they've got a double green, double blue, and a 3-color deck. I think I let them keep that. They can bind the monster. Our 1 to our 1/1 doesn't really matter. It will be a little annoying on our genie, but I don't think I want to get rid of that. Kind of want to get rid of Ongoing Investigation. Basically, whenever one of their creatures damages us, they draw a card. They can also exile creatures from their grave to draw a card. They do have to spend 2 mana to sack the clues that it makes to draw those cards, but it is still going to put them quite a bit up in card advantage over the course of this game. And gain them extra life to really grind it out. But Vorak is a really good play for them next turn, so I'm not happy that I'm letting them keep that. But I think it is our best option. Just make sure they don't have that card advantage engine. So here's Vorak. That's going to draw them another land and put a 3/3 out. Choose not to get a land, so they proliferate instead and just get a 4th energy counter. So that was not the end of the world. If it just plays as a 3-mana 3/3, that's cool. Another energy's fine. We can just pretend this game with 4. I don't need to hold up a counter spell unless I really want to make sure they can't tap down the genie, but I think I just play it, let them do that, take the 3, and they're down to a Frilled Mystic they can't cast and whatever random cards they have. Yeah, I think I'm playing the genie, I'm scrying, I'm getting the bind out of their hands, and we're trying to find another threat. Our deck's somewhat good against enchantment removal because we have that one Rescuer Sphinx. If we draw into that, it's really good with the genie. Unfortunately, a pretty low roll with it, so only going to scry 1. Would have loved to scry 2 or more here. Although we need to hit a nat 20 to scry 3, so not super reasonable to request that, but I was hoping to at least scry 2. That would have been great. So here's the bind. It's probably most of their turn. Only 2 mana left otherwise. Take the 3 from Vorak. Yep, and that is their whole turn. We draw another land after scrying 1 away. Deadweight does functionally kill the Vorak because we just stop getting hit by it at all. We just block it with a 1/2. It's probably good enough. Functionally deal with that, and then we're entirely waiting for somebody to hit a spell, but our opponent gets to keep scrying, so not a good position to be in a top deck war. Already flooding out a little bit. But they're down a card because Frilled Mystic is super uncastable, so might work out fine. We'll see. Also kind of down a card because lands are not doing anything here. Well, kind of down several cards. We didn't need any more than 4 mana right now. There's the Evolving Wilds to find the blue source. We got 1 turn to hit a spell till they have the Mystic up. Drawing about 3 lands in a row, so hopefully this is the time. I mean, it is. It's not a super good spell, but I think I still jam it out. I guess in theory, it is a cheap enough spell that I could just hold it in my hand waiting to draw another card and then just play that before I play the other card and see if I can bait the Frilled Mystic out. But if I get it out now and they don't draw other threats, we can just keep neonating. Alright, and there's a Tachiova, so they drew another threat, which means if we can hit non-lands, we can cast them here, but we didn't. So the Frilled Mystic shield is up again, and now Tachiova is going to beat us up and take our lunch money. As soon as they make it to 7 mana, they get to start turning lands into 3/3 flyers, which means every draw in their deck is a good draw. Kind of don't even need to scry anymore, which is perfectly timed, because now they are out of scrying. They just tapped a mountain here to hold up Mystic. And just play a land next turn, and no matter what they draw, they're killing us. Our deck is super bad against creatures with good abilities like Techova. We had so much time to draw action because we knew about the Frilled Mystic. The idea is that they're not going to have Frilled Mystic for another probably 5-6 turns on average, and it did take them another 5-6 turns, so we had many turns to draw any spells to cast underneath it and just hit tons of lands in a row. So pretty awkward draws this game. Turns our discard choice into a really bad decision in hindsight, which is unfortunate. How differently would this game have played out if we let them keep the investigate thing instead? I don't think it changes too much. We just have a resolved Aether Poisoner now. They don't have a Frilled Mystic. We have an Aether Poisoner. They've got the ongoing investigation on board, which means once they start hitting us with lands, they're also getting clues. Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have discarded the Techova. I don't think the choice was Vorax, so I think in the end it didn't really matter, but it does look like making them discard Mystic would have played a little better for us. Well, obviously can't kill Techova, but I can kill Mystic at least. And they've got Coven for the troops. That's just going to keep putting counters everywhere. There's Rescuer Sphinx. That's one of our best draws here. We attack them for 7 in the sky each turn, and they don't have any life gains, so we can try desperately to outrace. Hit them for 8 twice in a row? That kills them in 2 attacks if I can survive. The issue is if they hit any lands, they can just trade into our flyers, but it does feel like it's our best bet still. Keep the Reckoner Raid and really hope they miss lands here and just draw ground creatures. I guess Neonate already drains them. No, I should have put Reckoner Raid on the bottom. That was loose. I forgot about the Neonate life drain. That play probably ends up mattering more than the Investigations play, because drawing things other than Reckoner Raid would have been a big deal. They've got nothing, though. They've got 1 turn to find a land now, or a removal spell, so there's probably a lot of outs in their deck. There's at least, like, 11, because they gotta have 11 lands left if they have 6 on board. Wow. Really lucky ending to that game. I did not think we were getting through a Techova, but if they never hit a 7th land, then I guess technically Techova doesn't do anything. I suppose since they used Evolving Wilds, if they're running 17 lands, they only have 10 left in their deck, but that still leaves 10 of their 22 cards being outs at minimum. If they had any flyers, you add that to the number of ways they could survive. If they had more removal left in there, you add that. And I assume we just got real lucky there, because that probably adds up to at least 2/3 of their deck being something that would save them there. And almost anything that would save them would put them in a pretty good position. They're at a low enough life total, maybe several Neonate things get there, but any removal or flyers are probably big enough to kill our 4/3. It's only 3 toughness. Any land is definitely big enough. So then we would chip in for 3, 4, 5. I guess we'd put them to 2, even if they had a flyer. And then at 2 life, we just need to find 2 more Neonate hits before they kill us. But they had 11 power on the ground. And obviously, if I chumped with Neonate, I wouldn't be able to life drain them anymore. So yeah, I mean, all in all, considering everything, I think just any land or flyer or removal spell would have been enough for them to get there. Because they play that card. They attack us with everybody. I block Theorist. We take 11. But then they play a land post-combat, and boom, Sphinx trades into that. I hit them for 3. +1 from Reckoner Raid. So that's 4 totally, going on to 3. I Neonate, they're down to 2, but then I die on the Crackback. And same goes true if they play any 3 power flyer removal spells. So, all right. Incredibly lucky game there. Again, there were some definitely debatable lines there that we could have taken differently, but I kind of already went over them and everything's a blur in my head. I have horrific short-term memory, so if you want my opinions on my past lines, I already said them. We could have changed the discard. Maybe we should have hit Frilled Mystic there. Maybe we should have gotten rid of Okiba Reckoner raid. But worked out for us in the end. Got pretty lucky there. So we are 3-2 now, at least getting 1,000 gems back out of the event, which is great. Getting at least a 50-50 run in terms of win rate too. So pretty happy with where we're at. But I like this deck a lot, so I'm going to see if I can keep playing with it. Keep grinding out some more wins just to play some more games of Magic. We are heading into round number 6 now. And here we go, round number 6 in the building. Our opponent's on the play, which is a bit of a bummer because Aether Poisoner is much better on the play. Pretty hard to get an attack with it when you're on the draw. I guess if they only have one creature they really don't want to trade into a Death Toucher, you can do it, but I like to get this attacking in before they have anything on board, because usually they end up playing a 2-2 or a 2-3, and I don't want to trade my Death Toucher into a 2-2 or a 2-3 that badly. Okay, so they start with a 2-1 Branch Walker. Pretty happy to trade an Acquisitions Expert into that, since it'll be a 2-for-1, but the Branch Walker was also a 2-for-1, so it's just a perfectly even trade. They played a 2-1, drew a card. I played a 1-2, made them discard a card. Now they trade off, and we're perfectly even. Wow, they let me get their 6-6. Okay, so they definitely need that land then. Makes me a little scared of their hand. They must have a lot throughout the curve. Kiora. Oh my god, they've got ramp 2. They have 3 lands, a ramp spell, and they got rid of the 6-6. We know they're going to have 4 mana next turn minimum. If they play a land, they'll have 6. Spooky. Probably not a lot of haste in blue-green, so I'm not going to hold up Warrant. I'll just play Aether Poisoner. I think that's fine. I will get the second blue out for the future, though. Death Toucher should be pretty good in this matchup against some green deck that's trying to ramp into big things by untapping lands with Kiora. Kiora's a really good card draw engine as well. If they just keep playing big things, they draw a card every time, which could put us pretty far behind in card advantage because we can't stop them from doing that. We don't have any counter spells for their creatures right now. Got 2 in the deck, none in the hand though. Alright, that doesn't trigger Kiora, even though it does show up as a 4-4, so pretty fine with that. And I can't block that with my Poisoner at all. Ooh, what a draw. Can't block that with my Poisoner at all, so I'm just going to bind it. I suppose I could Deluge instead, but I'm just going to take 4. I'm going to pretend it hit me once, but then it doesn't do anything anymore. Oh, Kiora can just untap it. Oh my god, I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb. I should have just Deluged. Just gave them a free bonus attack here. Forgot Kiora's any permanent. She's not just lands. But hopefully they want to untap a land here anyway. That was really bad. So I guess I should just do nothing. Should have done nothing with Bind the Monster, actually. Well, they waited till post-combat, but I think they're going to see the line. Okay. They did untap Kavu, but at least they waited till post-combat. So we can just pretend... I didn't cast Bind the Monster, and they just attacked me with Kavu here. Naturally. I guess it means I have 1 less card in my hand to discard, but as long as Kiora's on their board, this card's going to be completely useless anyway. So we'll just pretend that we both played correctly. And that I didn't bind it. Because I'd be at the exact same life total if I hadn't bound it. Since they chose to untap it post-combat instead of pre-combat. Alright, do I hold up Warrant? I don't think Warrant is very good here, because if I bounce Kavu or something, they replay it and draw another card. I guess I have to just play a 4-4 flyer and hope to outrace. Desperately? So, while my life total is the same as it would be if I hadn't have played Bind, I am down 2 cards, because I would have had 2 Memory Deluge cards in hand, so that's going to be pretty impactful. Could have just punted out of this game. Because Kiora is gross against Bind the Monster. So yeah, wouldn't have affected our life total, but it has taxed us 4 extra mana, because now when I want these cards, I'm going to have to spend 4 more that I could have just spent a turn ago. Oh my god, they got Spinning Wheel Kick. I got bad news. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think we had a shot in this match. Unless Deluge was going to find a counterspell for the Spinning Wheel Kick, which I guess we'll find out. If there's a counterspell in the top 3, then Deluge would have found it. If not, we were just dead, period. Actually, I don't think I can afford to deluge now or I'm dead on board. I can't block that. If I block that, I get trampled for 8. At the same time, if I just play a Genie Windseer, all I can do is double chump, which means I still just lose this game anyway. Because I block Kavu. Sorry, I have to chump the chomping Kavu with a 3-3, chump the untamed Kavu with a 1-1, get trampled over for 4, go to 3 life, and there's nothing in my deck that's going to turn this around. So, just for science, I'm going to see if there's a counterspell in my top 3, and there's not, so we would have just lost this game really handily either way. I think these 3 are the top 3, so I wouldn't have even hit Deadweight. I would have hit Island, Omen of the Sea, Toll of the Invasion, and the Genie Windseer as my options. At the time, I would have picked up Genie Windseer and Toll, probably. Maybe I would have told in time to get rid of Kavu. No, because they played Kavu that other turn. All right, it wouldn't have mattered. I played really bad this game, but this was a super, super losing game. Overall. Just an incredibly losing game.
The ocean surges, life thrives.
Yeah, alright. I mean, maybe I would have told the Huntmaster out of their hand and died 1 turn later. Nothing's getting through them just playing beef and drawing a card every single turn. Super done on board. Alright. Rough match there. Kiora just being an insane card. Again, I played that really badly. The correct lines would have been to not bind the monster. Instead, we memory deluge that turn. I would still be at the exact same life total because Kavu would have just untapped that turn. They would have attacked. I would have no blockers. And then deluge, which lets me dig for the Omen of the Sea, Toll the Invasion earlier. Or the Genie Windseer, Toll the Evasion, because that would have still been my deck instead of my hand. Then instead of playing Memory Deluge, the turn that I just played it there, I would have had the mana to play the Genie Windseer and an Omen, I guess. In which case, here on this board state, I would still just die. Not literally. Well, I guess they would use Huntmaster on the Untamed Kavu, so yes, literally. Because I'd have Genie Windseer block the Chomping Kavu, and I'd block and get trampled to death, or I'd double block with 4 toughness on Untamed Kavu, which would be getting +3/+0, so it'd be 8 with trample against 4 toughness. I'd get trampled for 4 and take 4 from that. I'd take 8 total and still die. And then if I was like prophetic and I saw the future and knew they had Huntmaster in hand, instead I would have told, had 2 1/1s as blockers, gotten rid of Huntmaster. But even if they didn't buff the board, 2 1/1s as blockers means I double block the Kavu with 1/1s to stop 2 damage, get trampled for 3 there, and take 4 from the 4/4 Kavu. So literally every line I could have done, I would have died. Unless I specifically took like Toll of the Invasion plus Deadweight off of the Deluge. Then I still would have done nothing but chump block, but I'd be at 2 life. Yeah. Kiora ramping out beef and keeping them completely fueled with just more and more beef into the spinning wheel kick to just like one-sided board wipe was not beatable with the hand that we had. I think our hand was good against most stuff, but those cards were really, really explosive, and the only way we could have had a shot here is maybe having a counterspell up for spinning wheel kick if we had luckier draws there. Have our Urza's rebuff or something. Maybe if we had the Toll earlier to make them discard the spinning wheel kick. But yeah, I guess I was right to be scared they discarded the pallbearer because it just meant they had even cheaper beef. Really, really strong stuff from our opponent there. Some super, super scary decks with really explosive plays. Finding the 3 victories against us today to unfortunately keep us down in the 3-3 realm of average mediocrity, which is pretty sad because I think this deck was pretty good. This deck was pretty fun. we just ran into some stuff that was a little more explosive and just played out a little better than our deck. So, yeah, kind of a bummer overall. I'm pretty happy with how I drafted. I definitely made some misplays for sure. I don't remember any misplays in games where it would have mattered. Like, we misplayed a bit in games that were losing games, period, and misplayed a little bit in games that we ended up winning. So, obviously, those misplays didn't matter. We won the game anyway. But, yeah, somewhat rough plays for sure, somewhat rough lines, but nothing I think that impact the course of the draft. Still overall pretty happy with how I drafted. I think this deck played out pretty much exactly as I envisioned, which was pretty solid at just grinding out these kind of flying wins as best as we can, using our derpy blue and black removal to slow our opponents down and get in there with flyers. Again, certainly could have played it out a little better, but I think the deck list was solid, just didn't quite reach the heights that I think it was capable. It's going to land somewhere right in the middle at a 3-3 run. So, our prizes in the end are going to be 1,000 gems, and our random packs are Rivals of Ixalan and Guilds of Ravnica. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below or the join button. And other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.